Ocarina of Time is considered to be one of the greatest games in history. Soon to be remade this year, I decided to take on a challenge that almost feels impossible. The rules to this challenge are pretty simple. Every enemy throughout the game is completely random, besides any enemy that is considered a boss. Every enemy has completely random sizes ranging from tiny little ants to towering monsters. This includes boss enemies as well. Also, the enemies can be invisible, and I don't know why. Every enemy in the game moves and attacks 2 times as fast as a normal enemy. This includes bosses as well. I am required to beat the game after completing every dungeon and obtaining their respected medallions. Intentional glitches are not allowed, and I can only have 3 hearts. Now that you know the rules to this challenge, I will be telling you the story about my adventures in Ocarina of Time. For my first task, I am to obtain my very own sword and shield. To do this, I need to head over to this little hole in the wall and dodge a giant boulder to obtain the prized possession of the Kokiri, which is just a little sword. I then run around gathering every rupee I can find until I have a total of 40 rupees. With 40 rupees in my possession, I run over to the shop and buy my very own shield. Now that I have my very own sword and shield, I am now ready to show this guy who's boss and head straight for the Great Deku Tree. And this is where I encounter my first problem.
Are you kidding me? What is that? I can't even see it! Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's something I didn't tell you guys yet. And it's that I set every enemy in the game to do max damage, so no matter what damage I take from any enemy, it will instantly kill me. And don't worry, I quickly changed this setting so that I take normal damage, and I will soon find out that even that won't be so easy. But before that, my stubborn will got the best of me, and so I headed straight for the Great Deku Tree. He tells me that he is cursed and I must free him of this curse. He opens his mouth, which is our way into the first dungeon.
Is that a little mini knight? And I'm dead.
After this, I die quite a few times, and that's kind of what I get for setting the game to be so difficult. But pushing that to the side, I managed to obtain the slingshot, which will be extremely useful for this run. So after obtaining the slingshot, I make my way back to the... So I make my way back to the vines I'm gonna need to climb, and I find a Deku Stick. Yay. I absolutely need this for the dungeon, so it's perfect that I got it off this random enemy. I then die a bunch of times that I'm just not gonna show because it's just kind of ridiculous. I died over 20 times before changing the difficulty, and I'm just not having that, especially after this invisible fire bat killed me and burned my shield. Yeah, I'm good. So starting off somewhat fresh and grabbing myself a new shield, I headed my way back towards the Deku Tree, but on the way there, I am jumped by one of the Gerudo guards, so I quickly slime her out and I head straight into the dungeon once again. I end up grabbing some Skulltulas as they're gonna be extremely useful later on, and then I have yet another shield burnt to a crisp and die to this stupid enemy that doesn't take damage to normal sword swings. And then after this, I die in one of the most garbage ways you will ever see.
Okay. Are you what kind of are you sick?
Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, and it's that any void I am sent to or I fall into, I will instantly die every time. And there's also one more thing that I haven't told you guys about yet, but I'm just gonna wait until you guys can see it for yourself. Heading my way back through the dungeon, I die in some more absolute garbage ways.
I can't. Get off of me! This guy is so annoying! Stop, I don't want to restart.
But going through this dungeon, I did learn something very useful, and it's that anytime I go through a new door or loading zone, the enemies that respawn will always be different. So I can kind of just pick and choose what kind of enemies I actually want, but sometimes I can't. But putting that to the side, I managed to make my way through and die a few more times before I am finally able to reach the boss.
What? No! Stop! Yo!
Right after this though, I am able to kill this guy and finally get the door open to the final boss of this dungeon. And let me tell you that this boss was not gonna be easy. I ended up beating him on my first try. We are then sent back to the Great Deku Tree where he's gonna tell us all the Zelda lore that we don't need to hear. After listening to a bunch of nonsense, he finally gives us the spiritual stone that we so desperately needed. The Great Deku Tree then dies, and I am left with a mission to obtain the remaining 2 spiritual stones. After this, I head back to the shop to purchase yet another shield, and then I begin to set out on my brand new adventure. But before I can make my way out of the village, Sarah stops us and gives us an ocarina. And then Link does this, which I will never understand to this day. Finally making our way to Hyrule Field, we are interrupted by that one guy that nobody likes. He tells us to head to Hyrule Castle, that the princess is there. And then I fall for that stupid. He then finally leaves and I begin to head straight to Hyrule Castle. I am then completely ambushed and have to fight my way through the night, which I successfully accomplish. Finally, the gates begin to lower and I am able to make it to the town market. I quickly grab some rupees. I then meet my future wife that tells me her name is Malin and that her dad has went to the castle and hasn't come back. I then head to the castle in search of Zelda and her father. Finally reaching Hyrule Castle, I am then interrupted by this goddamn owl once again. He warns me not to get called by the guards. I weave out his minigame and then he leaves. I go to talk to Malin, but I realize she isn't here. To get Malin to appear, I purposely get called by the guards, which Malin then appears, and I need to talk to her because I need this egg. This egg will wake up her father who is sleeping on the job. I then head back to grab some more rupees to head to the shop to buy myself a brand new Hylian shield. I then head back to Hyrule Castle, dodge out the guards, and I finally find Malin's father, who is in fact sleeping on the job. And since my egg hasn't hatched yet, which I do have to wait till morning, I end up just sitting up on top of this box and watching him while he sleeps. Morning arises and I'm finally able to wake him up. I warned him that Malin has some knuckle sandwiches waiting for him at home, so he just dips, which finally gives me the space to make my way into Hyrule Castle. Inside the castle, I skillfully dodge out all the guards, stealing this guy of his lunch money and making my way to Zelda. And here we see some cool Mario 64 stuff. We got some Mario, some Princess Peach, some Yoshi, some Luigi, Bowser. Cool stuff. We then finally talk to Zelda. She questions if we have the spiritual stone, which we do. So she tells us that she is Zelda, and she begins to drop a bunch of more Zelda lore on us that we don't need to hear. But after getting through her yap session, we are able to see the evil man that she saw in her nightmares. And well, yeah, he looks pretty evil. She then writes us a letter that we're going to need for the guard at Death Mountain. We then meet Impa, who teaches us Zelda's lullaby. She then safely escorts us out of the castle, sending us on our next journey to Death Mountain. And that's where this video comes to an end, but this is only the start to our adventure. There will be plenty of more parts to my adventure, and I can't wait for all of you to see it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your days.